Okay, so today for our Women Engaging in Sports, we have Kathy Burrows, Amy Scheer, Keia, Clarke, and Natalie White. So now I'm going to turn it over to them, and they'll introduce themselves.
Hi there. I'll start. I'm Kathy Burrows, and I told Keia that she asked what the attire was, and I told her it was very formal and you had to wear your tiara. So I have my tiara on right now while I introduce myself. I am Kathy Burrows. I was a nurse, had a very strange background compared to the rest of you, but I had a nursing background, which taught me a lot of leadership in a hurry. And from there, I started doing some groups at the Cleveland Indians. They suggested I come aboard with a volunteer sales group they were starting. I said, no, thank you. They said, yeah, we didn't think you could do it, to which I said, fine, I'll show you. So I did. And that very first year, I outsold all their sales reps. So from there, they just kept asking me to come aboard full-time, which I didn't want to do. Most of you are dying to get a job, and I'm saying, no, thank you. Finally, at a weekend moment, they got me. So I headed their inside sales staff of 16. I headed their trainings. I was fortunate enough to sell corporate partnerships, $1 million suites, as well as regular tickets, start all sorts of programs. When I left there in 2002, I started Sold Out Seating, and it's just a way to work with teams to help them come up with strategies. I'm very strategy-based, which is what was lacking in sports, was strategy. It was more knee-jerk reactions. So I do a lot of strategy-based, I do a lot of trainings, but I do a lot of strategy-based with the teams also. Amy, what about you?
Hi, everyone. This is Amy Scheer, currently consulting with Madison Square Garden across multiple properties. I've been in this business for about 30 years. It's been a fun 30 years. Started out doing ticket sales, like many of you probably have or are right now. And really had the opportunity to work for a great mentor and boss my first go around at the Nets, who really gave me just about every project he didn't know who to give to. And in my 15 years there, that really gave me the ability to learn just about every operational piece of business in running a team. From there, moved over to the Liberty and ran their business for 10 years. And from there, moved over to soccer. And for the last 2 years, really just been doing more on the consulting side. So currently with MSG across all properties, and probably hopefully going to be doing some rugby as well soon. So just trying to make a use of my background across all operational areas of the business and be able to work across different sports.
Excellent. Keia?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Keia Clarke. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the New York Liberty. So a lot of familiarity, I think, on this panel this afternoon. This will be my 10th season, actually, within the WNBA. I began my career actually at the Basketball Hall of Fame as a salesperson. Really common way to have an entry into sports, that being a sports museum. I decided to try to make the crossover into the actual on-court play. I was a collegiate basketball player, so this career has been really sort of a dream come true, one that I hadn't envisioned when I was in school. My day-to-day right now includes everything on the business operations side. So I am an oversight of everything from ticketing to sponsorship, marketing, public relations, social responsibility, and really, if you've followed the New York Liberty at all over the last few seasons, we've been in sort of this transition mode where we've moved the team a few times to different arenas. We've revamped pretty much the entire staff, the entire team. And thankfully, I've been the common denominator throughout that process. So I've seen a lot of change along time, as it were, but really, really thankful and privileged to have, colleagues within the industry and people, even such as Amy, who had been with this team for a long time. So doing my best to bring a championship to the city and a winning attitude on the business side.
Excellent. Natalie, are you on?
I am. I'm here.
Okay. Natalie, tell us about your background.
Hey, hello, everyone. My name is Natalie White. I'm the Senior Vice President of Business Operations for the Los Angeles Sparks. So currently, I oversee a great team ticket sales, marketing, community relations, and youth sports. I got my start, back up here, my master's in sports management, had the great opportunity to enter corporate that turned into a 10-year career. And then into the WNBA, where my passion for youth sports and inspiring the youth came into play. So I've been in the sports business for over 20 years. This is my 12th year in the WNBA. Very, very excited, and it's very, very rewarding. So, but I started out, when I joined the WNBA, I started out in ticket sales, and then over to in Atlanta and overseeing that department, then moving to vice president of basketball operations. And then here I am now as senior vice president. So I started out in ticket sales. My first encounter was with Kathy Burrows, and she truly, truly helped pave that path for me to understanding how can I take what I learned at Nike and translate it to the WNBA. And it truly, truly was worth the experience.
Excellent. I have been very honored. I spent actually in my consulting career, I spent about 5 or 6 years with the W. They had brought me aboard and worked with all the teams, and the amount I learned, hopefully I gave them some knowledge, but the amount I learned was tremendous. It's truly one of the harder things to sell, obviously, but it's growing. And the people that work in it are so extremely passionate. So I've been so fortunate. These ladies have made such an impact on my life. So I wanted to make sure they were included in this. One of the questions we wanted to ask was, how do you sell yourself and how do you differentiate yourself from others?
I'll start. I think that for me, it's being authentic, and you have to do what you say you're going to do. Have great respect for others, and representation matters. When you hear people say it's a small world, it's literally a small world, and the sports world is definitely small. So you have to be a great representation because that translates throughout. So, but being authentic, I find that there are a lot of people who try to be someone that they're not. But in this business, you just have to be authentic to who you are. And be a woman of your word.
I agree. Keia, what about you?
Yes, sort of hanging off of what Natalie said, I think for me, just a willingness to do the things that I maybe didn't know in the beginning or I was learning at the time, just being willing to do things that may be outside of your scope, sort of that team player, if you will. Who's eager and excited about whatever the task may be. And I would say early on in my career, I was really focused on getting into the marketing side of things, but it just so happens that sales was the entry point. And the way that I was able to really lean into that was just to almost use those transferable skills and make it more of an entrepreneurial approach, I think, which we have that sort of luxury sometimes on the WNBA side, but really it all points back to the willingness. Will you sit in a room and at the table and be willing to take notes and listen? Are you willing to go get the coffee or make the copies or send the fax? But I think being that sort of solid, dependable person that leadership folks look at is really important. It's boded really well for me in my career.
That's a really good statement, and I'll get with you in a second, Amy. One of the things I find that team presidents that I work with and team owners I work with, my consulting now, the one thing they bring up a lot is you are consistent and you're authentic. So we know what we're going to get when we get you. And that is a key, I think that you have to remember going in. Are you authentic, which Natalie said, and are you consistent, which Keia said? So are you really carrying through everything that you possibly can? Can they count on you? At the end of the day, can they count on you? That's what's huge. People, presidents, team GMs, they want somebody they can count on to follow through. Amy, what about you?
I think at this stage of my career, it's a little bit different than Natalie and Keia, although I do believe in authenticity a lot. I think for me at this point, it's about selling myself and presenting myself as truly a leader that is going to bring communication, a sense of calm. We're going to always have solutions going forward. So I think for me, it's being in a position where I can lead by example. I could also mentor while I'm leading. So the staff really, or my team will really be able to learn and be mentored emotionally, mentally, skill set wise. So I think for me, it's about bringing leadership skills to the table, and a lot of wisdom and patience and know-it-all. I think there's probably nothing in the business I haven't done. So I think the breadth of my skill set is probably what differentiates me at this point.
And that's a good point. The more you learn, the more you're willing to take on and learn, the broader your resume gets, the more valuable you become, quite frankly. One of the things I have found is I've been able to sell myself, but I literally sell myself. So when you're saying sell yourself, I'm at a point now where I ask teams before they even bring me aboard to interview me, to make sure that that's who they really want, if I'm the right fit or not, because it's not about the money, it's not about getting a job, it's about, am I going to be able to make an impact with that team? Do we mesh? Am I going to be able to make the impact they're looking for? And if I'm not, I am more than happy to share someone else that I think would be a better fit for them, and I've done it, that would fit what they're looking for at that time. Some people, sports is the one thing I tell teams all the time. We're back in so many ways. We're back in 1990 instead of 2020. We evolve a little slower on the sports side with what the rest of the world is doing sometimes, and we're playing catch up right now. I mean, we've got an unsure future of how we're going to proceed, and so it's going to change, and that's what's exciting. Out of this darkness is coming actually some light, and we're going to have to evolve, and how we sell ourselves to help that evolution is going to be huge. What can we bring to the table that will help that evolution? So applying for a job, mine, I was very fortunate. So I'm definitely not the right person to ask, but I'm going to ask the rest of you, what was it like applying for your first position as a female, or applying for any position as you moved up? Amy, what about you?
Well, my first job interview out of college, I was actually hired because I was a woman. It was, listen, I'm a lot older than Keia and Natalie, so a little bit different for me, but literally I went on a job interview, and a gentleman who came from the Denver Nuggets said, listen, we need more women in sports. And I was like, great, I have the parts, let's go. And listen, I think for me, I've never had a problem applying for a job as a woman. I've never looked at myself as, oh my God, I'm a woman. What am I up against? You go in, and again, Natalie said it perfectly, be authentic. You go into a job and you just need to be yourself and be who you are, male, female, black, white, gay, straight. Nothing else should matter except for what you come in and you present as a human being. And you hope that the person that you're interviewing with has the same point of view. So I think now for me, the bigger problem is actually ageism versus being a woman. So I've never ever looked at myself going into a position as a female candidate. I just know that in my mind, I'm the best candidate, you hope.
Natalie,
I can't think that way.
Excellent. Natalie, what about you?
I think that, being in sports, I mean, the obvious is there. The statistics are there. I mean, you know that it's a male-dominated field. You're going to have to work twice as hard. But you can't worry about the stereotypes. And for me, it's just, I knew that I possessed the leadership qualities and the confidence coming in. I knew that I would be an asset to the organization. And that's what you show. And the reason why is that if you're prepared, and then there's nothing else. So you may walk in and they may see, a female and have those things in the back of their mind. But when you start doing the work, all that goes out the window. So it's all about how you prepare yourself and being confident and knowing that you'll be an asset to any organization.
Keia, what about you?
Yeah, I've had really an unorthodox experience in terms of, being female and working in sports, because the majority of what I've done has been on the women's side of sports. I mentioned my start at the Basketball Hall of Fame, which was really short. And I think it was less about me being a woman and more about the fact that I had played basketball. That was my first job right out of college. And people seemed to be more excited that I played at Canisius College, a really small Division I school, but it was, it just became kind of part of the network really because I had been an athlete. As I progressed in my career, I moved on to the Golf Digest, which is obviously a golf magazine. And the time that I spent there was when I really learned within myself that I preferred to work in women's sports. So it has become really, a benefit that I'm a woman, that I'm an athlete, that I'm African American, to have that different perspective in the room a lot of times. But moreover, when you're marketing to women, as I found myself during the time at Golf Digest, I was focused on golf for women, their women's title. And then ultimately went to the WNBA, where I was a part of team marketing and business operations, but I was choosing to work on the WNBA business because I felt that my skill set and the opportunity to really get my hands dirty and learn more, it was all the upside was on the WNBA side. So I think at this juncture, I'm looking at 17 years out of college, I deliberately am choosing to work on the WNBA side. And I think there are endless benefits, to having a female perspective where that lies. I am working more often than not within a portfolio that includes male sports, obviously, NBA or hockey, gaming, et cetera, But, I'm almost looked at as the expert on marketing to women and marketing to African Americans. It's like, having that voice and that really true authenticity about what we're doing. I completely want to look at it as a benefit because I'm a part of some of those categories. So it hasn't really been daunting really for me to try to break into the male side of it because I'm very comfortable and very happy on this side.
So a lot of you mentioned leadership. The leadership has helped you immensely and really helped you rise, gave you the confidence. And it took me a while, I know, to get my confidence up. And confidence came strong. I knew I reached it when I had a vice president from a Major League Baseball team call me. He was a male. And he called me and he said, I just wanted you to know that the staff voted on you to do the training and to also be on retainer to work with us. And I said, oh, that's excellent. And he said, but I'm not going to use you. I said, and you're calling me why? And he said, well, I just really don't think they're going to listen to you being a female. So at that point, I'm Polish and I have a Polish temper that goes off once every 5 years or so. So I just politely reminded him that that when he does need me, and he will, the price just went up triple, and I will not get him. And he hung up on me. So I probably won't ever work with him, but this is part of sometimes what you're up against. But I knew I had reached my level where I didn't fret over it afterwards. I was like, what a jerk. Instead, that's kind of the way I felt. It was your loss because I knew I could help that team. I already knew up front what they needed, how I could help them. So what are some of the steps you guys took? How did you develop your confidence?
I mean, I guess I can start on that one. I think, honestly, playing sports growing up, you are part of the team. You understand how to be coached and also how to coach your teammates. So I think for me, just growing up, obviously having supportive parents is important. But I think playing sports gave me a good sense of confidence. I don't remember ever lacking confidence in a sense, but it's always great, especially from a leadership perspective. I felt I find I get more gratification from my team than my boss. I'd rather have my team feel really confident and make me feel good about myself versus my boss. But I think, Kathy, one of the things you taught me, especially on the sales side, is to celebrate every win, big or small, and make sure that you're doing that with your club and your team. So I think as a leader, you have to have confidence, and it's just innate. It needs to be within. But I think it's actually almost more important that you're making your team confident by celebrating the small wins. And if your leader is not doing that, then it's something that you should ask them to do, because I think it's good for morale. But I go back to the fact that I just think all girls should play sports.
Yeah, that's a good point. I played baseball in grade school, and the boys always wanted me on their team because I could hit home runs, because I had big brothers that taught me how to hit home runs. So the girls were always mad at me, but that's okay.
I was all glove, no bat.
Keia, what about you?
Yeah, I had a direct manager for many years who would constantly say to me, find your voice. And I think as Amy said, I never thought that I really lacked confidence, but it was more an intimidation with being in a room with really, really smart people and well-accomplished people, and people who had been doing it for a long time, and never, and not really feeling like my opinion really mattered. And I would look at this under two, lenses. I can put myself as that 22-year-old, coordinator who was afraid to speak up in a meeting. And then I fast forward to now where I'm leading an entire team, and really finding your voice is the most important thing. Most important thing. I think a leader recognizing that everyone should have a voice, and their opinions are welcome and their ideas are welcome. And the only way that we're going to progress as an organization is for everyone to really have input. I think I look back at that time as, oh, I thought she was just riding me and she thought I was shy, but really she was building me up to understand this is how you lead. I don't want to be the only person talking in the room. I want this to be a collaborative situation. So, I won't deny that I wasn't a shy 20-something-year-old. And I really did have to find my voice. And in every different situation, I've got to dig deep down and find it again, moreover, as situations change. But I think confidence, again, it's innate, it's inside of you. It's the courage and the umption to actually bring it forth and really present ideas in a way where people can understand it and kind of jump on board. There's a persuasion that's a part of it as well that you kind of grow into, but, really encouraging people to speak up is really a mantra that I like to lead by. And it's all based on my past experience.
Which is key, yeah, I agree. Natalie?
I think just to add to Amy and Keia, knowing your worth, and that's something that I was very, very fortunate through mentors and through sponsors to learn early on in regards to knowing that your worth and that you belong and you have the ability to get the job done. Fortunately, I've been under, starting out in sports, I was under great, great leadership. And then I experienced not so great. So I learned a lot. And how I manage now, I pattern myself after some of those things that I've learned as the teamwork is one of the most important things, in teaching people how to be more giving of themselves. When you manage, a lot of people, you have to put them first. You have to put them first. You can't, it's not about you, it's about them, because you're only gonna go as far as the team. And I think that teamwork and that morale, it goes a long way, because people have a lot to give. And if they, like Keia was saying, if they know that they have a voice and their input matters, they're gonna run through a wall for you. And I think that's one thing that you have to manage each individual and not as a group, because everybody's different. And yes, it may take a lot of time and it may take a lot out of you, but it's just what you have to get done as a leader. And that's one of the things that I've learned. And I must say that it's been successful through my journey.
Yeah, and I think, I sound sexist, but I think women tend to bring that more, where they're a little more open and a little more bring it together, let's collaborate together. Collaboration is key. You're only as good as the people around you, quite frankly. So there's no point in, thinking it's all about you. It sure isn't. You're only as good as the people around you. So you hire smartly and you develop them well. We have other questions, but you know what, Marisa, there's a lot of questions you guys I see are popping up. Do you want to ask the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Dasha will alternate asking questions. Dasha, you want to start off with the first question?
Okay.
So we actually had one on a pretty interesting topic, and it was, how do you find a work-life balance if you have a family with all the nights and weekends that you have to work?
Yeah, this is you.
I'll take that one. I guess I'll start by saying it's very difficult to find a balance. And I think par for the course is just understanding that there will be imbalance. For point of reference, my husband and I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. I'm really thankful Avery just had a birthday, because typically I'm saying they're 6 and 7, and that just sounds crazy that they're right on top of each other. My daughter is older, she's 8, and Gavin is 6 years old. So what can I say? We both have very busy careers. We do spend a lot of time, in the city, in the workplace under normal circumstances. And the added part for me is that I'm at every single home game. And I think, really, really great advice that I received when they were babies was that I was going to miss some things. There were going to be moments at home where I wasn't going to be there, and it will be just an aw shucks, did you get a picture? Did you get a video? And there would be moments at work where I wouldn't be there because I left to go to a recital or, parent teacher conference. And I needed to find it within myself just to be okay with that, to know that I was given, 100% when I was at home, to know that I was present when I'm with them, and to give them my undivided attention, and to hope and pray that they see when mommy works hard at work and she puts her all into something, that they're learning from that. And I'll equate it to the fact that I never knew a day where my mom didn't work. And I valued that as I got older. She, made every single basketball game, and she made every single volleyball game. And then she looked at me and said, look, softball is just too long, and it's rainy, and it's this. And I had to be accepting of that. And, looking back, it was like, no, she was working hard to take care of our family. And I just hope that, what she instilled in me is what my kids will take from, them seeing my career as well as my husband's, in just, in terms of, you should work hard and you should, earn everything. But boy, oh boy, do I make sure that they know that, they're first. And when I'm here, I'm here.
There's a lot of challenges in sports, being married or having a partner, because you do have to give a lot of time, and even our male counterparts face the same thing. There's wives who aren't forgiving, that just don't get it, don't understand why you're working so much, why can't you come home? And on the flip side, it's kind of doubly hard sometimes for a woman, because we tend to be a little more emotional, missing things. Guys find it more accepting for some reason. Women do not. It's like, oh, how could I have missed that? You feel crushed. Actually, you put more on yourself than the kids do. They don't view it quite the same as you do. But Keia has been a perfect example of balance, and there are a lot of women out there who have figured out that balance and what is important and what you can let go, which is the key.
Awesome, thank you. We have another good question here. So with the decrease in youth sports participation and female youth participation, any recommendations on how we can reverse the trend, how we can encourage youth females and their families, and how important participation is?
Natalie, you own your own basketball clinic, so maybe you should start this one.
I'll start by saying that, and it's so ironic we get that question, is because Nike just started a program called Nike Game Growers, and it's been a great opportunity to basically pull together a lot of 8th grade girls, because that's the age and that's the grade where they're starting to drop out and not going on to high school. And as the question states, is girls are dropping out at a higher rate than boys now, and they're starting right at that 8th grade. So how can we make them understand how important sports is? And I think it's about the opportunity and the play equity gap that we have, because a lot of kids don't have the facilities or the resources to do that. So just tapping into a lot of the programs in your community, finding those influential leaders who believe in sports and believe that girls should be playing sports. And that's where we get started. It's going to take the community effort and someone to share their journey to really instill in these kids, like, this is the impact that sports had on my life. I've gained all these things, and you can do the same. And I think that with the Game Growers program, it's allowing that peer-to-peer interaction where you're taking someone who's plays sport, who's playing sports, talking to someone who doesn't play sports, and them having that dialogue and them understanding what are the fears that you have, what's your why, what is it that you're afraid of, or is it could be pressure, pressure coming from coaches, pressure coming from parents. So it's just understanding and allowing these kids to have a voice so that we can tackle this problem together. But I think that with the lack of resources and the facilities, it's going to take a community effort and people to really, really step up to understand that this is important, and we can't continue to lose young girls right at that 8th grade and not continuing on to play sports. We have so many great role models in sports that they can look up to, and we just need them to understand the importance of it and what they gain from it.
I have just to add on to that as well, is that I think many teams take a very short-term view to building out their fan base. And there's one path that says, all right, we're going to do fan development, but fan development has to turn into ticket sales right now. And I think that teams need to take responsibility to have parallel paths. One that is short-term fan development and one that is long-term fan development. And the New York Rangers on the hockey side do an amazing job of this on how do you build out your youth programs year over year over year that may not necessarily be revenue driven in the short term, but I think will be revenue driven or revenue generating in the long term. So you have short-term fan development and long-term fan development. So you continue to grow the participation in your sport year over year, but it doesn't necessarily have to translate to ticket sales. You do it because it's the right thing to do for your sport, and it's the right thing to do for your community.
Those are great responses. Thank you so much. So another question that we had is, how do you sell yourself outside of an interview? So what do you have to do to get your name out there and just to even get an opportunity for an interview? So what has worked for you guys in order to do so?
Contact.
Yes.
I would say the power of networking is never too early to start networking. Getting your name out there is the amount of people that you connect with, and then find people in your field that you someone who's doing what you want to do, and contact them. Do informational interviews, and I don't think that's being done a lot. I think that you see a position, you may be afraid to approach that person if you're able to, or email them or contact them via LinkedIn. Those are the opportunities that you have. We have to use this technology now. Use it to your advantage. And I think that's one of the things, like networking. You can't be afraid to get out there. Nobody's gonna come seek you, so you have to put yourself in the position where you're able to meet people. And don't be afraid to ask questions. For me personally, I never stop learning. My interest is knowing, how did you get to where you are? Because you didn't start there. What are some of the obstacles? What was your journey? And that was inspiring to me. That's what motivates me. So I love meeting different people and understanding their path. And within that conversation, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, and that's going to help you along your journey.
Yeah, I never knew anybody that came to your college dorm room and knocked on the door and said, "We want you." It just doesn't work that way. But the interesting thing is, and I don't know about you three, but the interesting thing is I have a lot of people that reach out to me, and then they want a ton of information, then they fall off the face of the earth, and then 4 years later I'll hear from them again, and they're like, "Oh, I'm changing jobs, can you help me?" It's like, I don't even know who you are. If you don't stay connected to people, don't just use them. It's all about the connection and staying connected. Keia, what were you going to say?
I think that's such a great point, and actually relates to what I was going to say, which is staying connected but not being annoying about it. But I think once you make you know, a connection with someone, it's important to maintain that in some sort of cadence. But I also think doing a little work on your part before you even meet with someone, especially if they're extremely senior and they've taken time to spend time with you, either on the phone or in an in-person interview, you should do a little bit of research and know about them, or even, you know, this may not always be the case, know about their business or learn about their business on your own before they tell you themselves. And I'll give you a really quick story. I transparently had never been to a WNBA game and I was studying at NYU for my master's in sports business. And it bothered me. I ended up writing my thesis on the WNBA and its target marketing, because all I could ever think was, how did they miss me? Why are they not targeting me? I played basketball for 20 years. I'm from Connecticut, where there's a team. I've now moved to New York, where there's a team. And I just never felt like anything was directed toward me to actually come to a game. So I write this 30-page paper and I do this survey of 10 different schools. And then I was afforded an opportunity to meet with someone who worked at the WNBA. And at that point where I was presenting this paper is when she subsequently asked if I wanted to work there. So it just so happens I think that might not be how it always happens, but I've essentially made a career out of what began as just curiosity. I was inquisitive about the league, and I didn't know a lot about the league, and, you know, pretty much have spent, you know, the entirety of my career working on it now. But I always appreciate when someone walks through the door and they're not asking me the simplest of questions that they could have learned on a website before they came to me. And I appreciate much more if someone even has interest, or like says, you know, I'm going to be the GM of a WNBA team when I grow up, and this is what I've done during my studies, or this is what I did during this internship. Those are the people you remember. Those are the people who you call when you're looking for, you know, a coordinator or a marketing assistant, or, you know, that next manager. And those are the people whose email you answer when they do ask for advice at a later date.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was awesome advice. Moving on to a next question from one of our participants. I'm currently a junior in college, and I was just wondering, what was the hardest obstacle to overcome when starting to work into the industry?
That's too far back for me to remember.
I'm thinking the same thing, Amy. I'm like, the junior year, I think I was just pretty much trying to land a great internship that would align with my passion of what I wanted to do. And I think that's one of the things is knowing that, you know, what you're passionate about, you know, and follow that passion. I think that, yeah, about the internship is about aligning yourself up to what it is you want to do. Don't waste your time, you know, doing something that you're not passionate about. If you can't wake up every morning excited about what you do, that's not what you're supposed to do. So that's one thing that I know, that for us, what I was thinking about then is pretty much is that, you know, I need to make sure that this is something that I want to do and that's going to help me within my career. And it's pretty much knowing that at that time, I knew what it was I wanted to do.
I started out, you know, going, as I said, from the volunteer club, and I finally, at a weak moment, said, yes, I'd work there. And it was a struggle at first, having acceptance, because who are you? You were in a volunteer club, and now all of a sudden you're here heading a department, and why? You know, why you? So it was a lot of shut your mouth, Kathy, prove yourself, and just stick your nose to the grindstone and do what you do best. And, you know, focus is huge. I like to think I'm always friendly. I like to think I like to work with people. I like to think that people enjoy engaging with me. But overall, focus is huge. So if I can keep my team focused and myself focused, everything else can fall off my shoulders, because that's what's going to matter. Their success equates to my success. So my whole process when I went in was to just not worry what any of the other people said or what any of the other people thought. My investment was in the 16 people I had and what I needed to do with them, as well as the 30 people from the volunteer sales club. What can I do with them to prove that we're worth being here as a whole? And that was my focus, and that's ultimately what what got me the respect of the team also.
I also think have a plan. So you're a junior in college. Have a plan. Write down where you want to work, where you want to intern, and start to get all those contacts, get all the background information, and put a timeline against all the reaching out you're going to do, and build out a job search plan for yourself, or an internship job search plan for yourself, and then hold yourself to that plan. Hold yourself to the benchmarks and the things you said you were going to do. I'm a big believer in planning. So to Kathy's point, focus, and I think a plan helps you do that. So build your yellow brick road. No one probably gets that, but nevertheless.
I get it. I get it.
So we all know that when you go in for a job interview, you're not only getting interviewed, but you're also interviewing the people who might be hiring you. So how is that more important now in this industry as a female when you're trying to pick a job, with you interviewing the company?
I would say just it goes back to being prepared. There's nothing more discouraging when you're interviewing someone and you say, okay, what questions do you have for me? And then they look at you like, I don't have any. Like I'm fine. No, you're not fine. You're interviewing for a job, and you don't know everything about that company. Obviously hopefully you've done your research, and that's one thing too. Do your homework. And Keia mentioned that earlier. Like, there's no reason why you are going into an interview and you don't know everything humanly possible about that organization. If I'm interviewing someone after my director of group sales has interviewed them, and I'm the last stop, and I come in, I'm asking the question, what can you tell me about the Los Angeles Sparks? What can you tell me about the WNBA? And if is the first word that you say, that's not good. So being prepared, make sure that you're prepared. And I say that with the same smile on my face. I don't scowl. It's just about, and I use that as a teaching moment for individuals. Understanding that if you want it, you have to go after it. And that means that you have to be prepared.
Keia, what about you?
Yeah, and I think preparation is everything. I mentioned doing a special project or sort of that above and beyond moment that you could provide for someone. I think it's also important, though, for you as an individual to recognize and ask some specific questions that really point to the culture of who you're speaking with. So when you talk about, you're interviewing the person interviewing you at the same time, it's important to understand pace. It's important to understand management styles. It's important to understand collaboration and teamwork. And I think there are safe ways to ask questions like that within the guise of an interview that help you understand what that organization is really, what their mission is and what they're positioned for, and ultimately how you could fit into that or how you may not be a fit for that. And, it's hindsight is always 20/20, but I think there were probably some instances where if I had known a little bit more about the structure or asked some of those questions coming into a situation, I would have understood a little bit better what, my role was going to be when I entered the position. Going back sort of to the question that was asked before, what were some of the obstacles early on in your career? For me, it was pace. I had, really grandiose dreams for working in sports, but you have to understand that on a team, the pace is just outrageous. More often than not, you're working toward the next game or the next big event, or, everything is so scheduled out throughout the course of the season. And, there's sales against every game and there's events against every game, and we're trying to collect data, and you have this finite number of dates that you're trying to accomplish it at. And I really had to look within myself. I mean, there were nights where I just pulled all-nighters to figure out, how was guy going to show up and, show that I did the work that was asked of me. But you need to be prepared for that sort of pace, and then, how that really fits with your personality and your work style and your work ethic. I think that's really important. I encounter young people really often who come in and say, it's been my dream to work in sports. And then I say, well, you need to be at every game and work the 9 to 5. And they looked at me like I have 10 heads. It's like, that's what it is. This is the job. That's a part of it. So, asking good questions is a part of it, I think.
Yeah, and I have interns. Oh, I'm sorry, Amy, go on.
I was saying, I think there's also, when you go for an interview, there's a lot of subtleties as well. We may never shake hands again, but if we do, you have to have a firm handshake. You need to look people in the eye. You need to bring energy. Don't slump in your chair. There's body language that's very important as well when you interview. I never want someone to walk away from me thinking like, oh, like they were slouching in the chair, didn't have energy. The way you conduct yourself in the interview is everything, from being dressed professionally to appearing professionally, and your vocabulary, everything. So preparation is by far the most important thing, but how you physically carry yourself is also just as important.
I was going to say too, internships are key. If you're a lifeguard and you need to work, that's good. But somewhere in there, you need to get some sort of internship in your field too, because lifeguarding is not going to necessarily carry you over into sports world. But I started some coffee house chats just before all this happened with the virus. And one of the chats we're doing is an intern chat. And it's very interesting to me that of all the people in college that reach out to me, very few partake of the intern chats. And I have owners that are silent partners on these intern chats. I have team presidents that are silent partners on these intern chats. And what I don't think you're realizing is that you have the opportunity to put yourself in front of some key people. And very few are taking advantage of it. So this past week, we gave them a project. And it's an interesting project, but it can help teams overall. I have a couple teams that are on it. It will help teams overall plan for playing to silent arenas, playing to partially filled arenas, not playing at all. They're working on strategy. And granted, they may not have all the answers, but it's a starting point in thinking of strategy. And believe me, these leaders are looking at this like, okay, these kids are trying. There's a lot of them right now are not having an internship because nobody's playing. And so they're taking the initiative to try and get their own internship or try and prove themselves and learn. So they're taking a good hard look at these kids. So, it goes back to, I think Natalie said it, who wants it? I mean, really, who wants it? You've got to step forward and want it. Again, nobody's going to knock on your college door and ask you to come work for us. So you've got to want it and make that effort. As Nick in El Paso says, it's not getting out of your comfort zone. It's expanding your comfort zone. So to expand it is huge.
Thank you, guys. So we have one last question before we start wrapping things up. What are some books or podcasts you would recommend to build confidence or professionalism for young women in the sports industry?
That's a good one.
For me, I mean, I'm kind of unorthodox. Whether it's a podcast or some books, like just the other day, I just opened up my book cabinet, looked on my bookshelf and pulled some books back that I read years and years ago. Like I'm a big Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. I like to, even though I'm in the sales world and marketing world, a lot of the things that I read are more, I like self-help, I like inspirational, I like spiritual. So, and that's what helps me with the balance. So there are, I'm big on webinars, So you just got to find those things. To me is what more do I need to learn? What are some areas where I need to improve myself? And then you go out and you seek those things and you find it. I'm not the type of person that if someone teaches me something or shows me something once, I want to learn more about it. I don't want to go back to that same person. Hey, can you do this for me again? No, I want to learn about it myself. So being very, very resourceful. So I think that I'm very reluctant because I think that when you talk about podcasts and books, it has to be unique to what your needs are and what you need to help guide you in your career. But I came from the Nike background. Like I think Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, I think that's a phenomenal book. Again, I mentioned earlier about I'm interested in the path, in the journey of how and why. Like Simon Sinek, finding your why. So those are a couple things like Simon Sinek, Malcolm Gladwell, Phil Knight, even from Michelle Obama with Becoming. Because I think that we have to be self-centered and understand, like, what makes us motivated, each and every day to do what we do. And you just got to find those things to pour into yourself.
So that's amazing advice. Thank you so much. We have 10 minutes left in our session. So I just want to ask if you guys had any other advice for females in the industry or just breaking into the industry for anybody.
Who wants to start?
I mean, I know that this is a seminar about women in sports, but again, we're like the human race. We're all in this together. You like to think on a daily basis we're all on the same team, even though we're not. And at the end of the day, just go in and be confident and be prepared. Understand what you bring to the table. Have your quote unquote elevator pitch. So you know how to speak about yourself in a succinct but very informative way. And listen, be proud to be a woman. We bring so much more to the table, I think, than men do on a daily basis, because I think Kathy said it before, and I think Keia, alluded to it as well. We're collaborative, and I think we're better team builders. Because there's less ego and more about getting stuff done and doing things the right way. So be proud of who you are. Again, and Natalie talked about it, be authentic and go in and just be proud every day, every interview, every day you go to work, be proud and be positive. Male, female, whatever you are. Try to be all the good qualities, be grateful, bring all the good qualities to the table that people want in their workplace.
I think one of the key things people find is, I find for sure when I'm talking to somebody, is if we're having a real conversation. Are you really ill at ease and find this as an interview and it's a you, me, okay, I'll ask something, now you ask something. Are we having a conversation? If you can relax during that interview and have a conversation, you're the kind of person most teams would want, somebody that can actually sit down and have a conversation with someone. So it goes back to being prepared. It goes back to being prepared enough that you're confident going into it. And to me, asking questions is huge. Think about the questions you want to ask. What's most important to me is, and I tell kids all the time, is how is that team going to grow you? Your first job in sports can make or break you, quite frankly. There's a lot of people that have had their first job and said, I don't want any part of this anymore. And I put that back on them. Did you interview well enough, or were you pie in the sky, stars in your eyes? Oh my God, I'm working for such and such a team, versus how are they going to grow me? This is my first job. How are they going to grow me? What do I need to do to grow? How much will I learn? That's a key for anybody entering sports, is what value can I get from this? What am I going to learn? And that's something you really have to look at. Instead of looking at who the team is, look at what you're going to get with this team. What can you contribute, and what will help develop you? Keia?
I would add, along the same lines, as a woman entering the sports industry, I would encourage you to be bold, to really be confident. And there's been no movement in the history of the world that women didn't lead and we didn't open up, and speak our voices. And I think, especially this next generation, after us, you have the freedom to be disruptors. You should feel confident in feel like, you know, you can take the social media and talk about how people have done you wrong and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I think everybody is applauding people really being forceful and disruptive about things. So, you know, as women entering male or female sports, you know, our voices need to be heard. And I would just encourage everyone to be bold about it, especially if you've got good and innovative ideas.
Natalie?
Yeah, just to add, you know, you guys are hearing the common theme: confidence, 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 and don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to take risks.
Agree.
You can, when I interview someone, understanding that you don't know everything that I know, you don't have the experience that I have, but I can quickly see that if you are confident, if you believe in yourself, if you've done the homework, and if you're worth me giving you that opportunity, just based off of what Amy was saying, off your demeanor, you know, like the willingness to learn, the willingness to say, you know what, I know this is a risk for me, but you will not be disappointed with this opportunity. And I want to go back to the networking thing, networking and connecting, and take pride in building relationships. As Kathy said earlier, don't just use people to say, hey, you know what, yeah, I was on this Zoom call with them, or I was at the seminar and I said hello to them, and now that I'm seeking this job and I think that they can help me. Continue that dialogue. Continue that dialogue and take pride and build those relationships, because you're going to need that along the way, and your representation and how you do and how you go about communicating is going to follow you. It's going to follow you.
All right, so I just want to thank our panelists once again for taking time out to talk to everybody. There were so many good questions. I'm sorry that we could not get to all of them. So for our viewers, if you could please join us in our post-game Zoom room. There's the URL on your screen just for your feedback and advice. And thank you so much, everybody. That was a great session. Lots of great advice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Mhm.